Hello, time then for the press preview. It's a first look at what is on the front pages. It's time to check out the headlines with the political editors of the Daily Mirror and The Sun, Pippa Crerar and Harry Cole. A very good evening to both of you this bank holiday. Speak in a moment. First of all, though, let's check out those front pages. Nowhere is safe is the harrowing headline for The Eye, which reports on what it calls a major escalation of the Russian offensive in Ukraine. According to The Times, the Ukrainian president says this means that the next phase of the war has begun. The Mirror looks ahead to Boris Johnson's appearance in Parliament tomorrow to face questions over his fine for Partygate, what it calls Johnson's walk of shame. The Sun leads with the awful story tonight, the death of the newborn son of footballer Cristiano Ronaldo and his partner Georgina Rodriguez. Just so tragic. The Guardian understands that phones in Boris Johnson's Downing Street office have been infiltrated by hacking software that turns them into remote listening devices. And in fact, that's also the lead story, as you can see in the Mail. Now, according to The Telegraph, ministers have been told they must order their civil servants to stop working from home and return to the office full-time. The Metro hears that 1 million discounted train tickets will go on sale tomorrow in an effort to encourage rail travel now that those COVID restrictions have been relaxed. The Express says the Queen is set to invite Harry and Meghan to appear with her on the balcony of Buckingham Palace during her Diamond Jubilee to try and heal the rift in the family. And the Financial Times reports that the private equity group, which co-owns the supermarket chain Asda, has now valued its stake in the company at 20 times what it paid just a year ago. And a reminder that by scanning the QR code you'll see on screen during the programme, you can check out the front pages of tomorrow's papers while you watch us. And I'm joined tonight by Pippa Crerar and Harry Cole. Great to see you both this Bank Holiday Monday. Thank you for joining us. And Pippa, why don't we crack on with the start with the front page of The Eye. Nowhere is safe, which is just awful, isn't it? The fact that we've seen these missile attacks now in Lviv, which has been relatively, and I say relatively, unscathed. It's been a place where many people fleeing from the east have sought refuge.
Yes, Jonathan, it's been one of the main routes out of the country for the millions of people that have fled the war. They've gone to Lviv and then over into Poland and beyond. And it's where we've seen many Western television correspondents, presumably also Sky amongst them, reporting from the relative safety, although often in the background of those reports we've heard aircraft sirens going off in warnings to, or missile attack warnings to the population. But it has remained relatively safe, and it's only really just this attack in the last 24 hours, which I think has killed 7 people, that suddenly sort of unsettled all those people in Lviv, and has really been a sort of real marker of Russia's escalation of the conflict again. We obviously, in the last couple of weeks, had sort of a de-escalation as Russian troops pulled out of Kyiv and the surrounding areas. But all the sort of Western intelligence suggests that we were anticipating a re-escalation, primarily in the east, in the Donbass region, and certainly President Zelensky seems to be saying that has now happened, and Russian forces are pounding cities in the east and attempting to take those territories once and for all.
Someone calling Harry with a scoop, a late-night scoop, perhaps. But let's look at your article in The Sun, Harry, because we know President Zelensky saying tonight that the Russians have begun their offensive to take control of eastern Ukraine, the Donbass. It's been anticipated now for some time. The president saying it is underway. And what you've said in your piece in tomorrow's paper is that Boris Johnson is sending more missile aid.
Yes, so all eyes now sort of turning to the east of Ukraine. That Zelensky saying the war for Donbass has begun. That sort of sporadic spray of missiles all over Ukraine over the weekend, perhaps signalling a new phase of the war. But the aggression focused really in the east tonight, and we'll remain to see what happened overnight. But this week, hopefully not too late, the latest tranche of weaponry is going over from the west. The UK leading the charge on that, including some. Sorry, my phone is now ringing again. Including some quite serious kit. These Stormer missile transporters, which.
I'll tell you what, Harry, don't worry. Just take a pause and turn it on to silent. Don't worry, we've got time.
I'm trying hard to.
OK, carry on.
I think
carry on. I think
Stormer missile
it.
transporters. These are 50-mile-an-hour armored vehicles that can carry 17 Starstrike missiles, which are the very aggressive anti-chopper, anti-aircraft missiles, which Zelensky's foreign minister saw on a visit, defense minister saw on a visit to Salisbury Plain 2 weeks ago, has requested we send them. And I can tell you tonight that Britain has agreed, and they are probably quite soon on their way to the Ukraine. OK, that's very interesting because, as our correspondent was saying from Ukraine this evening, it looks like the next phase of this war is going to be quite different. It's going to be less suburban. It's going to take place in a much wider landscape, which could mean different types of weaponry are required. OK, let's move on from Ukraine, Pippa. Turn to your paper, front page, Johnson's walk of shame. He has got a big day tomorrow.
Yes, so as you will all remember, Boris Johnson received his first fine. We are expecting there to be more, but we'll have to wait and see, for some of those lockdown breaches, the parties and social gatherings that happened in Number 10. And he became the first Prime Minister to be found guilty of breaking the law, sitting Prime Minister to be found in breach of the law at that point. But of course, all the MPs were off in their constituencies. And Number 10 has been packing the Prime Minister's diary with everything from a trip to Kyiv to a new asylum policy announced by Priti Patel at the end of last week. So this is the first opportunity that MPs are going to get to question the Prime Minister directly, and indeed his first opportunity to address them. And we're told that tomorrow in the Commons he's going to make a statement in which he will, again, wholeheartedly apologise for breaching the law, although there seems to be some suggestion that he will then go into some detail to explain why, in fact, he didn't believe it was a breach at the time. Some might view that as contradictory, but there you go. And then he will try and sort of move on the narrative and focus on some of the other issues which have been dominating government. Clearly, the Prime Minister wants to get back on the front foot with this. He's very conscious that MPs will have been talking to people in their constituencies. And while there has sort of been this feeling amongst some of the PM's closest allies that he's safe and that Partygate is behind him, having spoken to lots of Conservative MPs, including some ministers today, it's quite clear that they're not quite so convinced, that there's still a big question mark over the Prime Minister's future, and that there's potentially bumpy road ahead with both possibly more fines, the run-up to the local elections, a red wall by-election on the horizon, and that the Prime Minister is going to have to do a lot of convincing them that he is, in fact, the right person at the right time to carry on. Timing is on his side. There's not an obvious successor that's on his side as well. But it's anything but straightforward, the Prime Minister, and the next couple of days are going to be important to him.
OK, well, we've lost Harry. Maybe his broadband company was giving him a call to say there are a few issues. But Pippa, thank you for the moment. That will try and regain contact with him. Meanwhile, civil servants are apparently being told they need to stop working from home. Is that fair enough? We'll ponder that in a couple of minutes. Hello again, welcome back to the press preview. Still trying to reconnect with Harry, but Pippa is with us. Pippa, front page of The Guardian. This is an incredible story, isn't it? It's another hacking story of sorts, this time using this Pegasus spyware. Tell us about it.
So there's a Canadian group based in a Canadian university which have uncovered that Pegasus spyware has been used right across, in fact, they're not just concentrated on Britain, but this story is about Britain, right across British government, including it in departments like the Foreign Office, where obviously there's lots of sensitive information around, and at Number 10, which of course is home to the Prime Minister. And the device basically it means that they can take a mobile phone, like a normal mobile phone, like any of us have here, and they can use it as a listening device. So if sensitive conversations are going on between the Prime Minister and aides, potentially, or between security officials, even more worryingly, then they, by accessing some of the phones of those individuals, they would be able to listen in. And the suggestion is that they pinpointed, this group have pinpointed the origins of this hacking to the UAE, which obviously is an ally of Britain, and will inevitably raise questions for that relationship. And I'm sure that there've been questions asked tonight by the Foreign Office of their counterparts in the UAE to try and determine what's going on there. Obviously, at a time when security is heightened globally anyway, and in particular, Russia has a record of using ransomware and other cyber attacks as a sort of hostile force against its enemies, then the last thing we want is any sort of breach in our security. So I'm sure that it's going to ring alarm bells at the National Cybersecurity Centre, and they're going to be getting the officials to try and look into this as fast as they can to try and close some of those security breaches.
Yeah, really concerning. You can read more about that in Tuesday's Guardian. Now, there's good news and bad news for commuters as we once again start heading back to work after the Easter holidays. Front page of the Telegraph, Pippa, stop home working. The civil service is to be told. Ministers ordered to get staff back into offices. Now, one of the very few benefits of the pandemic has been that actually the revelation that you can work from home and do it successfully has been opened up to many of us, and yet the civil service are being told they all have to come back full stop.
Yeah, this has become a real bugbear of the government, hasn't it? This sort of demand that Whitehall civil servants are back at their desks, and it's not one actually which is replicated in the private sector. You speak to people across the city, for example, and as you rightly say, Jonathan, one of the benefits that they have, that sort of city chiefs have recognised of the pandemic, is that ability for, if not working from home the whole time, then certainly sort of flexible working. So days when maybe staff need to get stuck into data or do some reading or some writing and don't necessarily need many face-to-face meetings, although of course, as we all know, those can be done on Zoom. That is actually a benefit to their businesses, and staff are more productive. The days of presenteeism, of thinking that if staff aren't there, seem in the private sector to be gone. But as the Telegraph story shows, this is a drive by Jacob Rees-Mogg to get more civil servants back at their desks. This is not an attitude that seems to be shared in government at the moment. It's kind of part of this wider picture of this split, if you like, between politicians and civil service that's just been in place ever since Dominic Cummings, the PM's former top aide, came in and decided that he wanted to rip up the civil service and that they weren't effective, they were holding ministers back and so on. Now, it may be bloated in some parts, but I think, my experience of Whitehall civil servants is certainly that they are, top of their game, and they do it for the love, certainly not the money. Yeah. But there are some examples in this story of some departments where really a very low number of staff are coming in on any given day. Department for Education, only about a quarter, same for DWP, whereas other departments like Department for Health and Department for Trade are much higher, about 3/4 of staff are in on any given day. But it just looks like part of a gradual shift back to a sort of more normal life.
Okay, sorry, Pippa, I'm going to have to cut in because we're running out of time, and I just want to show the front of the Metro. The good news for commuters, if you're getting a train tomorrow, half-price rail fares are on the way, or certainly 1 million tickets to be reduced this spring. So a little bit of Easter cheer. Pippa, thank you very much indeed. We'll try and get hold of Harry for the next preview in half an hour's time. Right now, quick look at the weather.